Here's the thing. You know what drives me crazy? We've got cultures building generational wealth so quietly you'd never even notice. While over here, people are making decent money and somehow ending up broke every single month. Now look, I'm not talking about luck or secret advantages. I'm talking about everyday habits. Simple stuff. But here's what most people don't realize. The difference between staying broken and building real wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about what you do with it. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is another stop buying coffee lecture, stick with me. Because what I'm about to show you is how entire economies rebuilt from literal destruction using principles that work just as well today. You might be thinking, great, another impossible financial system I'll try for a week. Wrong. These are so simple, you'll wonder why nobody taught you this stuff in school. Here's what kills me. Ask the average person where their paycheck went, and you know what they say? I don't know, it just disappeared. Now you might be thinking, I know where my money goes. Really? Because studies from the Journal of Consumer Research show that 68% of people underestimate their spending by at least 30%. That's not a small error. That's hundreds of dollars monthly that you think is somewhere else. Here's the thing about tracking expenses, and I mean really tracking them. When researchers at the University of Iowa studied spending habits, they found something shocking. People who manually wrote down every single expense reduced their spending by 15 to 20% automatically. There's this principle in psychology called observational awareness. The moment you observe a behavior, you change it. It's like Schrödinger's wallet. You can't look at your spending without affecting it. Now look, I know what you're thinking. There's an app for that, right? Wrong approach. Here's what most people don't realize. Typing numbers into an app doesn't create the same neural connection as physically writing it down. MIT researchers found that handwriting activates different brain regions than digital input, specifically the ones tied to memory and behavioral change. Here's how this actually works. Get a notebook. Not fancy, just a notebook. For 30 days, write down every single purchase, everything. That $4 coffee, that $2 parking meter, that 2 a.m. Amazon order you barely remember. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You're going to categorize these into 4 buckets. Survival stuff, rent, groceries, utilities, optional stuff, that streaming service you forgot you had, enrichment stuff, books, courses, experiences, what was I thinking stuff, impulse purchases. At the end of each week, ask yourself 4 questions. How much came in? How much do I want to keep? How much went out? Here's the big one. How can I improve? Not, how can I be perfect? How can I improve? That's the whole game. Here's a real example. Friend of mine, let's call her Sarah, started tracking everything. First month, she discovered $400 going to subscriptions she completely forgot about. Another $300 on random coffee and takeout lunches, $200 on digital purchases she didn't even remember downloading. She didn't cancel everything immediately. She just became aware. 6 months later, $4,000 saved without feeling deprived. A year later, $10,000 emergency fund, same income, different awareness. Here's what most people don't realize. Awareness is the first step to wealth. You can't fix what you can't see. Now look, let's talk about something that's going to frustrate you. According to USDA data, Americans waste 30 to 40% of the food they buy. Let that sink in for a second. You're working 8 hours a day, commuting, dealing with stress. For what? To throw nearly half your groceries in the trash? Here's the thing. This isn't just a food problem. This is a wealth problem nobody talks about. You might be thinking, okay, but it's just a few dollars here and there. Wrong. Here's the math people don't do. $5 meal you didn't eat times 3 times a week equals $15 weekly equals $780 yearly. Add clothes you wore once, items you bought and never used, things you replaced that could have been repaired. Most people are burning $200 to $400 monthly on waste they don't even notice. Now, this is where it gets interesting. There's this Buddhist concept that everything has inherent value. When you waste something, you're not just throwing away an item, you're disrespecting 3 things: the money you worked for, the resources that created it, the potential use it still had. Let me give you a real example. Guy I know, we'll call him Mike, cleaned out his garage last year. You know what he found? $2,000 worth of tools he bought and never used. Closet? $3,000 in clothes with tags still attached. Kitchen? Gadgets still in boxes. Here's what most people don't realize. That's not past money. That's future wealth you already burned. Mike started a simple practice. Before buying anything new, he asked, "Will I use this completely?" Before throwing anything away, can this be repaired, repurposed, or donated? Here's the actionable part. For food, meal plan. Use leftovers. Actually eat what you buy. For clothes, wear items at least 30 times before buying new. For stuff, repair first, replace last. 1 year later, Mike saved $6,000 just from not buying things he'd waste. His previous waste became future wealth. Now you might be thinking, this sounds like deprivation. It's not. It's respect. There's a huge difference. Here's where Americans get it completely wrong, and honestly, it drives me crazy. We want the overnight transformation. I'm going to completely change my life starting Monday. Monday comes, we try to do everything at once, burn out by Wednesday, back to the same habits by Friday. Sound familiar? Here's the thing, and this is backed by behavioral psychology research from Stanford. Dramatic changes have a 92% failure rate within 30 days. You know what has the highest success rate? Micro changes. Tiny improvements. So small, you can't fail. Now look, there's this compound effect that's going to blow your mind. If you get 1% better every single day, not 10%, not 50%, just 1%, by the end of the year, you're not just 365% better. You're 37 times better. That's how compound improvement works. But here's what most people don't realize. The flip side is terrifying. If you get 1% worse daily, you're nearly at 0 by year's end. Small changes aren't small. They're everything. This is where it gets interesting. Applied to money, this is ridiculously simple. Save $5 more this week than last week. Cut 1 unnecessary subscription this month. Here's the actionable part, and this is crucial. Week 1, save $10 automatically, not $100, not $50, $10. Week 2, make it $15. Week 3, $20. Now you might be thinking, $10? That's nothing. Wrong. Here's the math. Making coffee at home instead of buying it. $5 daily, times 365 days equals $1,825 yearly. Invest that at 8% for 20 years. You've got $91,268. One tiny change equals 6 figures. Real example. Woman I know couldn't save anything. Zero. Started with $1 daily. Week 1, $7 saved. That's nothing, she thought. But she kept going. Month 1, $30. Month 6, she'd build up to $10 daily. Year 1, $2,500 saved. Year 2, increased to $15 daily. 5 years later, $35,000 emergency fund. Started with a single dollar, compounded it into financial security. Here's what most people don't realize. Tiny changes sustained beat massive changes abandoned every single time. Now look, let's talk about why people are broke despite working 40-plus hours weekly. And this is going to frustrate you. According to Gallup's State of the Global Workplace report, 85% of people hate their jobs. Let me repeat that. 85%. They're working jobs they absolutely despise just for the paycheck. Here's the thing nobody talks about. When you hate your work, you spend money to cope. And this creates a vicious cycle that keeps you trapped. Research from the Journal of Economic Psychology shows people in high-stress, low-fulfillment jobs spend an average of $400 to $700 monthly on what they call compensatory consumption. This is where it gets interesting. There's this concept of finding the intersection of 4 things. What you love doing, what you're naturally good at, what the world actually needs, what can pay you. Real example. Guy I know, we'll call him Tom, made $80,000 in corporate. Hated every second. Found his purpose teaching part-time. Made $45,000 first year. Coping spending dropped to nearly zero. Lived happier on way less. Year 3, making $60,000 doing what he loved. Saving $15,000 yearly. Previous life, made $80,000, saved nothing. Miserable daily. New life, made $60,000, saved $15,000. Happy. Daily. The actionable part. Start identifying your intersection. Don't quit your job tomorrow. Build a side project in that area. Test it. Transition when you're ready. But start. Here's what social media has done to us, and honestly, it makes me furious. We're scrolling through perfectly curated lives. Perfect houses, perfect cars, perfect everything. Then we look at our own lives and think, not good enough. According to research from the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology, people who spend more than 30 minutes daily on social media are 2.7 times more likely to feel inadequate about their possessions. Now look, here's what this costs you. The average American spends $10,000 to $15,000 yearly on home improvements, chasing this Instagram-worthy perfection. Here's the thing, and this is going to sound counterintuitive. There's a philosophy that finds beauty in imperfection. Aged wood has character. Cracked pottery tells a story. Simple, imperfect, incomplete. That's where real beauty lives. Now you might be thinking, that sounds like an excuse to have old, broken stuff. Wrong. Let me reframe this for you. That scratch on your table, it's from your kid's homework. That's not a flaw, that's a memory. This is where it gets interesting. Let me show you the real cost comparison. American mindset approach. Kitchen renovation, $45,000. Still not satisfied. Neighbors get new kitchen, another $15,000 in updates. Total burned, $60,000. Alternative approach, kitchen works perfectly, $0. Accept the character, $0. That's $60,000 invested at 7% for 20 years, $232,000. You just chose between a slightly newer kitchen or $250,000. Here's the actionable part. Look at what you already have through a different lens. And honestly, cancel Pinterest and HGTV if they make you feel like what you have isn't enough. Now you might be thinking, but I want nice things. Here's what most people don't realize. Contentment with what you have is literally the foundation of wealth. Comparison is the thief of contentment. Now look, let's talk about American portion sizes. And this is going to surprise you. According to nutrition research from Cornell University, the average American eats 23% more than they did 30 years ago. Restaurant portions have increased 138%. But this is where it gets interesting. Studies of the world's longest-lived populations show they practice something simple: eating until 80% full, not hungry, not stuffed, just comfortably satisfied. Now you might be thinking, what does eating have to do with money? Everything. Here's the math. Eating to 80% naturally reduces food costs by 20%. If you're spending $500 monthly on food, that's $100 saved monthly equals $1,200 yearly. But here's what most people don't realize. You can apply this 80% principle to everything, not just food. Financial applications. Don't spend your entire paycheck. Leave 20% untouched. Live on 80%. Save 20%. Here's the psychology behind it. Hedonic adaptation research from Harvard shows that satisfying that last 20% of wants costs 50% more, but delivers only 10% additional satisfaction. It's the worst return on investment possible. Real example. Guy I know ate out until completely stuffed every meal. Felt terrible. Restaurant bills, $800 monthly, started stopping at 80% full. Ordered less food, bill dropped to $500 monthly. That's $3,600 saved yearly just from eating less. Plus, and this is the compound effect, he lost 30 pounds. Annual medical costs dropped $2,000. Got more energy. That energy got him a promotion worth $8,000 more yearly. One habit created multiple compounding benefits. $3,600 food savings, plus $2,000 health savings, plus $8,000 income increase equals $13,600 total impact. Here's what drives me absolutely crazy about American culture. We want everything right now. According to behavioral economics research from MIT, the average person will pay 20 to 30% more to get something today versus waiting 2 weeks. Treat yourself has become a legitimate financial strategy. Buy now. Pay later is everywhere. Amazon same-day delivery. We have zero tolerance for any discomfort whatsoever. Now look, here's the thing about delayed gratification. Remember the Stanford marshmallow experiment? Kids who could wait 15 minutes for 2 marshmallows instead of eating one immediately. 40 years later, researchers tracked those kids down. The ones who waited? They had higher SAT scores, lower BMI, better jobs, and here's what matters, significantly more wealth. One single trait predicted everything. The ability to wait. This is where it gets interesting. Applied to money, it's ridiculously powerful. Want something? Wait 30 days. Here's the psychology. Most desires fade completely if you don't act on them immediately. Research from the Journal of Consumer Psychology shows 67% of purchase impulses disappear within 48 hours, if not acted upon. The actionable part, and this is crucial, implement the 30-day rule starting today. Before any non-essential purchase, wait 30 days. Add it to a wish list. Here's the math. If you normally make 20 impulse purchases monthly averaging $40 each, that's $800 monthly. With the 30-day rule, 90% of those disappear. You save $720 monthly equals $8,640 yearly. Real example. Woman I know saw something, bought it immediately, repeated daily. Debt grew to $15,000 from this pattern. Started the 30-day rule, first month, wanted 20 different things. Waited. 30 days later, still wanted 2 things. Completely forgot about 18 of them. 1 year later, debt gone, savings growing, same income, different discipline. Now look, Americans throw stuff away like it's our job, and this one really gets me. According to EPA data, the average American generates 4.9 pounds of trash daily. Much of that is functional items that broke. And here's the thing, most of it could have been repaired for 20 to 40% of replacement cost. But we're on this replacement treadmill that never stops. Something breaks? Hey, it's broken. Buy a new one. This is where it gets interesting. There's this philosophy that when something breaks, you repair it thoughtfully. The repaired piece becomes more valuable than the original because it has history. Now you might be thinking, repair costs almost as much as new anyway. Wrong. Here's the actual math. Repair jeans, $15 versus new jeans, $60 arrow. Save $45, repair appliance, $100 versus new, $600 arrow. Save $500, maintain car properly over 5 years, $2,000 versus new car, $40,000 arrow. Save $38,000. The math is screaming at you. Here's the actionable part. Something breaks? Google how to repair item first. YouTube University has a course on everything. Beyond your skill level, get a repair quote before buying new. Choose repair 90% of the time. Started repair first approach. Shoes repaired, $40 versus $120 new arrow. Saved $80. Dryer fixed, $100 versus $800 new arrow. Saved $700. Jacket patched, $20 versus $200 new arrow. Saved $180. Year of repairs, $400 spent versus would have been $2,000 in replacements. Saved $1,600. Here's what most people don't realize. The broken thing repaired has more character than the perfect thing replaced. All right, final habit. And honestly, this might be the most important because it ties everything together. Here's the thing about Americans, and this is going to sound harsh. We stress about everything we can't control. The economy, inflation, other people's success, where we started financially, past mistakes. According to research from the American Psychological Association, 72% of Americans report financial stress. But here's what kills me. 80% of that stress is about things completely outside their control. Now look, there's this concept of strategic acceptance. Here's what you cannot control. Where you started financially, your past mistakes, other people's advantages. Here's what you can control: today's spending, today's savings, today's habits, today's choices, today's discipline. The actionable part: make 2 lists right now. List 1, everything you can't control about your financial situation. Write it all down. Then say, I release this, and cross it out. List 2, everything you can control. Pour 100% of your energy there. Real example: woman stressed constantly about not being where others were financially. Started practicing strategic acceptance. I can't change my past. I can't control others. I can control today. Stopped comparing completely. Stopped stress shopping. That $600 monthly redirected to savings. Year 3, $25,000 in the bank. Same income, different focus. Here's what most people don't realize: comparison is theft. Stress spending is expensive. Peace with your path is free. Look, here's everything in one breath. 9 habits that build quiet wealth: conscious tracking, resource respect, incremental progress, purpose alignment, appreciating simplicity, the 80% principle, patient endurance, repair focus, strategic acceptance. Now look, here's what I want you to do this week. Pick one habit, just one. Don't try all 9 at once. That's the American way, and it fails. Start ridiculously small. Conscious tracking. Buy a notebook tonight. Resource respect. Audit your waste this weekend. Incremental progress. Save $1 today. Master one. Add another next month. Here's the thing: entire economies built wealth from literal ashes using these principles. You don't need a catastrophe to start. You just need one choice today. Choose awareness over ignorance, discipline over impulse, contentment over comparison. Because here's what most people don't realize: quiet wealth isn't loud or flashy. It's patient, it's disciplined, it's invisible, until one day it's completely undeniable. Now go start. If this changed how you think about money, subscribe to Robert Invests for ideas that challenge the default path. Because freedom isn't luck. It's math, executed patiently.